Hey everyone, Bernardo Escoval here. In today's video, I'll be showing you how I painted the Penguin premium format figure from Sideshow, taking it from this to this. Let's get going. Here we have the Penguin, which is pretty much an iconic character, right? And with this piece, it's dark, it's very moody. So I'm starting with the torso first, because if I did the portrait first, it might be too light, it might be too dark. So I'm doing the torso to lay down the colors and get a good bead on what his face is gonna look like with brightness and tone. Like with all the pieces that have detail, I'm just applying a wash to pop that detail and get into the crevices and then splotch it off. You know, a lot of that will help make that pop. I think it's interesting to the eye to see like, oh wow, you know, it's just not airbrushed and there's texture to it. Then I'll go back, final steps, and start dry brushing, doing highlights and shadows. We'll get the piece and it's a sculpture, right? So obviously you have the natural light doing everything. I paint it where I force all that stuff in so that when it's sitting on a shelf, it has depth. I think it's great to do that because it adds depth. Adding the shading and then going afterward and adding a pop of highlight is making the graphic part of it pop and come to life, basically. You know, and we want to lay down classic colors, so finding the right colors like the purples and whatnot for the tuxedo trousers, going in and trying to lay down the textures, doing washes, and using dry brushing to enhance, like I'm doing here, enhancing the wrinkles, going back to tone down those dry brushing strokes with a wash, and then stippling to give it texture and show grittiness and dirt plays a big part. And a lot of it's trial and error, but a lot of it is something I pretty much do for most of the pieces I do. Going back and forth with highlights and shadows, and then weathering techniques, different weathering techniques, using splatter, once again, clear, glossy, transparent paints to show mud. So a lot of that was getting done first just to set the tone of the Penguin in his environment, which is underground in the sewers. So, you know, I want to lay down that basis first. So if I did the trousers, I'll do the shoes next just because I can put the legs onto the feet and I can have that part of the body on the base and I could see where that all has gone. Then I'll add the torso on top of that, see where that has gone. And then knowing that I'm going to be doing the portrait next, I just did the hat. No particular order, but getting the hat established first so that when the portrait goes under that, I can see where the shadows are going to lay. The hat's already been done. I'm looking at the artwork using that and lighting to see where the light is hitting. That's been established. The hat gets put on the portrait, and then I look at the portrait. I can see where I want to go from there. With the base, it's starting dark, kind of like miniature painting. I'll start off dark and then I'll go and I'll strike in my highlights just because it'll be easier for me to work from dark to light because there's so many crevices in this thing. Everything's been established, all the shadows, so now I'm just working on top of that. And all that is only because we have the piece in front of us, we're turning it, we put the piece together, we look at it, we put some light on it, turn it off, go back and forth. Okay, yeah, we can see it. Let's go lighter here. Let's go darker here. Starting off dark with the base made it easier to get the shadows and stuff like that on there. This is a piece that when we saw in design, it was like, man, what can we do here to really make this thing pop? Make it look like it's coming out of a comic book, but at the same time, give it a real world feel, but then adding highlights, like if there is a glowiness to it from being underground and adding the gloss and giving it that murky, wet, dingy look. Once I do that and block out their colors, I'll go in and I'll start strategically just popping highlights with brighter colors, you know, washes to tone all the stippling down and the dry brushing, and then I'll go back in with airbrush as well. Once again, getting the colors right with the murky water reflecting off the rocks was challenging because, you think it looks good here, and then you got to adjust after when we get a review. We have the project manager coming in and we'll look at it and say, okay, you know what? Let's add a little bit more green. Let's change the bottle color, because before at one point they were one color, and then we go back and do a different color just to shift so everything doesn't look the same and monochromatic. The most difficult part, I think, of this piece was getting the tone of the water right and how dark we had to go with it to show kind of light bouncing through underneath, and then having the glow come up on the rocks, on the penguins. So that's why I went with the clear, and then I'm going in with transparent green, then mixing a little bit of transparent brown to give it that murky water look, because I was just basically painting or tinting the top layer of the water so that the light could go through. And then seeing it get executed and turn out the way it did, very proud moment to see it come to life. You can't have the penguin without his legion of soldier penguins. So, looking at the reference, there is a few different type of penguins, and penguins, we all know they're black and white, but there's so many different variations of penguins out there. I just didn't want it to be black and white. I wanted to give it some style, so I painted it in the paint scheme or the colors of an emperor penguin, where it's got the breakout round little area around the neck. Having these, detailing them out and giving them their little battle scars, showing that they're out there to fight for their boss, the penguin, their master, if you will. The way the paint over was done was, oh wow, this looks like out of a graphic novel. So my job is to try to execute that the best I can. I'm basically using the paints I have around me, and they're water soluble, they're acrylics, nothing special, transparent, using as washes, and I'm using alcohol to break up certain washes, and I'm using sponges. So I wanted to give it the graphic look. I went in it thinking more, not so realistic, but kind of loose, like almost watercolory, making them kind of pale and then giving them some blue undertones and then some reds around the nose. And just when I started painting it, man, I really got my momentum. It was really exciting to see this piece coming together. From being a realistic paint job to a more graphic novel color palette to it, I think would be more punching up the pale colors and punching up the reds. And then, a little bit of satin or glossiness around the portrait, around the eyes, like he might be a little sweaty, just creepy. I'm giving him more of a moistened eyelids or around the eyes, around the nose, and in the scar, just giving him the imperfect skin or kind of creepy vibe. He's got scars and blemishes, so trying to get that across was pretty fun because I could be very loose with this paint job. The relationships we built here, within the project managers, we kind of get to have a say, oh, here's what's coming up. Are you interested in doing this? For this piece to be the first penguin, we needed to knock it out of the park. So it was an honor, actually. It was very cool for them to consider me on the piece. And I really do hope people love this piece. I think we put a lot of effort into it just to give to the fans, because we're fans too. Penguin is a really, 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 really cool character. From design to cut and sew, the sculpting, I think it came out great. I'm very happy. I'm proud to have been part of this project. All right, here's the Penguin Premium Format figure all wrapped up.